So if you've been keeping track of my Trump Tuesdays, I've been blasting Trump a lot for not taking this virus seriously. But only now is he starting to change his tone on the virus.
President Trump just moments ago with a somber tone.
President Trump is taking this darker tone.
He was as grim as he's been through this entire crisis.
I want every American to be prepared for the hard days that lie ahead. We're going to go through a very tough 2 weeks. You're going to start seeing some real light at the end of the tunnel, but this is going to be a very painful, very, very painful 2 weeks.
So it finally looks like Trump is starting to be a little bit more afraid of the coronavirus. The reason may be is because of these scary numbers. The White House projects that even if America does everything right to get this virus under control, it could kill between 100,000 to 240,000 Americans in spite of all precautions. Yeah, so if Trump saw these numbers and still acted like it was nothing, then we would be in some serious trouble. Trump continues to hold press conferences almost every day, and during one of them he started to brag about his TV viewer ratings on his press conferences, comparing them to Monday Night Football and The Bachelor.
As the New York Times said, we have Monday Night Football type ratings, but even they said that the ratings are like Monday Night Football ratings, and that these are like Bachelor finale. That's their end. When the big deal happened, I have no idea what happened because I'm too busy working on this. Somebody will tell me what happened.
I mean, yeah, you have high TV ratings, but that doesn't mean the people that are watching is because of you. It's because they want to hear the news on the virus and what to do. I mean, I don't know what his point was there to even bring that up or what message he was delivering, but okay. Trump went on Fox News to be interviewed by his favorite friend, Sean Hannity, and he even suggested that some government officials and hospitals were either lying about what they need or possibly even stealing supplies.
New York is a bigger deal, but it's going to go also. But I have a feeling that a lot of the numbers that are being said in some areas are just bigger than they're going to be. I don't believe you need 40,000 or 30,000 ventilators. You know, you go into major hospitals sometimes, they'll have 2 ventilators, and now all of a sudden they're saying, can we order 30,000 ventilators? And, you know, they'd say, like Governor Cuomo and others, they'd say, we want, 30,000 of them. 30,000. Think of this. You go to hospitals, they'll have 1 in a hospital. And now all of a sudden everybody's asking for these vast numbers.
What do you mean all of a sudden? Yes, all of a sudden there's a pandemic. All of a sudden people need ventilators. During another press conference, Trump suggested something fishy was going on with the lack of masks in New York City hospitals, implying that heroic medical professionals and doctors who were putting their lives on the line might be hoarding and stealing the masks.
They've been delivering for years 10 to 20,000 masks. Okay, it's a New York hospital, it's packed all the time. How do you go from 10 to 20 to 300,000? 10 to 20,000 masks to 300,000, even though this is different. Something's going on, and you ought to look into it as reporters. Where are the masks going? Are they going out the back door? All we do is hear that, can you get some more? So I think people should check that because there's something going on. I don't think it's hoarding. I think it's maybe worse than hoarding.
Seriously? You think these hospitals may be hoarding or asking for more masks than they need? I mean, if you have trust problems with these hospitals and medical professionals, maybe that's why you ignored information from your advisors about the coronavirus as early as January 14th. Ooh, really hit him hard on that one. Anyways, if you can't think of anything more American than hoarding toilet paper, then think again, because people are now hoarding guns. Yeah, what are you gonna do, shoot the virus? Anyways, I want to end this video off with some good news like always. According to thermometers, social distancing might be working. The company Kinza Help, which makes smart thermometers that uploads users' temperatures to the internet, reports that fevers across the United States are dropping dramatically. These are the same thermometers that predicted the rise in coronavirus. So if you're seeing a drop in temperatures, that's a really good sign. The city of New York, and the epicenter of the virus, has also taken serious measures to treat patients with the coronavirus. For example, the huge Javits Convention Center is being converted into a hospital with 1,000 beds, and there is an emergency field hospital that has been constructed in Central Park, and entire hotels will soon be rented out and converted into hospitals. We had a chance to ignore the fate we are currently suffering, but our president squandered it by ignoring the problem for weeks. Medical professionals are begging for supplies for hospitals and for patients in need, but the president is instead implying that they might be stealing or hoarding supplies. When this is all over and the history of this moment is written, the kindest thing you'll be able to say about Trump is that
Ended up looking like a fool.
Thank you for watching and see you next week on Trump Tuesday. Last Tuesday, the state of Wisconsin held their primary, even though the coronavirus outbreak is still happening.
We turn now to Wisconsin, where despite the state's stay-at-home order, the primary is underway today. And after a day of chaos and confusion surrounding the vote, folks are now casting their ballots in person, despite fears of spreading coronavirus. And already, there have been long lines at polling places, raising concerns about social distancing.
There were people lined up around the side of the high school, around the corner, through the parking lot, and then into the road and sidewalk that extends beyond that school as well.
I mean, that is crazy. Just take a look at how many people are standing in big crowds together, avoiding social distancing. Thanks to so many poll workers dropping out, the number of voting sites was slashed across the state. For example, the number of polling locations in Milwaukee went from the usual 180 all the way down to just 5. 5 polling sites for a city with over 600,000 people. So you might be asking why the state should have postponed their primaries like many other states. Well, it turns out Wisconsin's Democratic governor, Tony Evers, tried to delay the primary and tried to make it easier for people to vote by mail, but he was blocked by the Republican legislature. Which doesn't make sense. During this time, it is very important to keep away from other people, so voting by mail would solve the problem and wouldn't pose a risk to voters. Why would Republicans want people to have them still voting in polling sites? Well, it turns out the Republicans are afraid that if more people have access to voting, then they're scared that they may lose elections.
Donald Trump has said that if we voted by mail, Republicans would never win again.
The things they had in there were crazy. They had things, levels of voting that if you ever agreed to it, you'd never have a Republican elected in this country again.
The Speaker of the House in the state of Georgia has said the same thing, that they don't want more voter participation.
This will be extremely devastating to Republicans and conservatives in Georgia. Every registered voter is going to get one of these. So, this will certainly drive up turnout.
And so instead of coming up with policies that are more popular, they'd rather make it harder to vote, which puts many lives at risk. Trump's biggest argument about this is voter fraud. And although voter fraud is rare, experts believe it is more likely with mailed ballots. But does this overweigh the burden of going outside and being exposed to hundreds of people during a pandemic? I don't know about you, but to me this seems like Republicans are willing to do anything to stay in power, even if it involves risking people's lives. Anyways, let's move on to some Trump stuff. Listen to this.
The CDC is advising the use of non-medical cloth face covering as an additional voluntary public health measure. So it's voluntary. You don't have to do it. They suggest it for a period of time, but this is voluntary. I don't think I'm going to be doing it.
So yeah, the CDC recommends everyone to wear a mask when in public, but Trump said he's not. And there's nothing wrong with that as long as you're keeping a social distancing. But the fact that the CDC announced that a measure should be taken and he replied to that in a televised conference with, "I don't think I'm going to be doing it," sends the American people a message that maybe they shouldn't wear a mask either. Anyways, let's move on to something different. As long as the pandemic goes on, top researchers are trying to find a safe, working, and tested cure for the virus. But Dr. Trump says that we should use an unproven anti-malaria cure for this disease known as hydroxychloroquine.
I hope they use the hydroxychloroquine, and they can also do it with Z-Pak, subject to your doctor's approval and all of that. But I hope they use it because I'll tell you what do you have to lose? There's a possibility. And I say it, what do you have to lose? I'll say it again, what do you have to lose? Take it. I really think they should take it. But it's their choice, and it's their doctor's choice or the doctors in the hospital. But hydroxychloroquine, try it if you'd like.
According to the New York Times, the experts warned against overselling a drug yet to be proven a safe remedy, particularly for heart patients. Yes, the heart stuff, Mr. Trump acknowledged. Then he headed out to the cameras to promote it anyway. So what do I know, he conceded to reporters at his daily briefing. I'm not a doctor, but I have common sense. This drug could have serious side effects as well. The label for Plaquenil, a brand of hydroxychloroquine, says patients taking the drug have reported life-threatening and fatal cardiac problems and irreversible vision problems. And now, because of Trump's advertising, many people are now hoarding hydroxychloroquine for themselves, leaving people without an actual drug to treat many other viruses that it can, such as malaria. So essentially, Trump seems to keep promoting this drug, even though it hasn't been clinically tried to work yet for patients with the coronavirus. Usually, I would have an estimate or hypothesis to why Trump would do this, but honestly, I'm left with nothing. Maybe he thinks that this drug has no side effects when taken, so that's why he always says, "What do you have to lose?" But he clearly says, "What do I know? I'm not a doctor," while still promoting this drug. I mean, I'm completely lost. And to end off this video, here's some good news. Twitter CEO Jack Dorsey donated $1 billion to coronavirus relief, aiming to help disarm the pandemic. And if you think about it, this throws so much shame on Mark Zuckerberg and Jeff Bezos, because they also donated money, but donated way less than Dorsey, and they have way more money than Dorsey. Moving on, people in India can see the Himalayas for the first time in decades, as the lockdown eases air pollution. This is great, knowing that India is the second largest country by population, and especially in northern India, where a lot of India's pollution comes from. And there we go! That about wraps up everything for this week, but don't forget, Trump ignored several months of warnings about a possible pandemic, lied about it when it arrived, forfeited responsibility to the states, pushed an unproven miracle cure, and now if you beg him to provide leadership, he'll respond by saying,
I don't think I'm going to be doing it.
Thanks for sticking around and watching, and as always, see you next week on Trump Tuesday. One of the biggest arguments and debates we had this week, and even now, is when we can open the country back up. This has been on Trump's mind ever since the country was put into lockdown, and ever since this pandemic started. Because one thing he holds dear to his heart and takes pride in the most is the economy. Listen to this.
With nearly 17 million Americans filing new unemployment claims in the last 3 weeks, the president is eager to open the country again for business by May 1st.
I call it the Opening Our Country Task Force, or Opening Our Country Councils. I'm going to have to make a decision, and I only hope to God that it's the right decision. But I would say without question, it's the biggest decision I've ever had to make.
Yes, Trump has put together a task force to determine when to reopen the country. And yes, this is a decision you have to make to officialize the date, but the real decision is made by the task force, not you. The task force consists of 70 members and all Republican senators except for Mitt Romney.
You didn't go.
Thank you very much.
Who are you with?
I'm with the Salt Lake Tribune.
Okay. Good.
Thank you, sir. On Thursday, the White House announced a congressional task force on reopening America. It included every Republican senator but Mitt Romney.
Yeah.
Does that show that you're still holding a grudge against Mitt Romney?
Yeah, it does. Yeah. No, I'm not a fan of Mitt Romney at all. No, I had 52 Republican senators.
He was the governor. You don't want his advice.
Well, I just don't think, I'm not a fan of Mitt Romney. I don't really want his advice.
I mean, that's crazy. But in Trump's mind, it makes sense. Romney was the only Republican senator to vote for one article of impeachment, and ever since then, Trump has never liked him or trusted him. So it would make sense not to involve him in the task force, in Trump's mind. Now, deciding on when to reopen the country is a very complicated decision. Experts have warned that if the country reopens too early, we could be experiencing a second wave of coronavirus by July or even August. But if we do it too late, then the economy will become even worse, and the unemployment rates would skyrocket even more than it already has. And for Trump, the second option seems to be more reasonable. But for most people, they would want less deaths and coronavirus cases, and wouldn't weigh the economy of the country over the overall health of the people. And this is why Trump has assembled a task force, so multiple people can share both sides of the argument and create a date that everyone can agree upon, I hope. Anyways, what I'm trying to say here is that we shouldn't open the country so early, and maybe wait a few months, but that's just my opinion. Alright, let's move on to some other news. President Trump is halting funding to the World Health Organization.
This morning, amid the coronavirus pandemic, the president pointing fingers, announcing he's halting aid to the World Health Organization, saying their initial guidance against travel restrictions led to confusion and deaths. And now, his administration will review their handling of the crisis.
One of the most dangerous and costly decisions from the WHO was its disastrous decision to oppose travel restrictions from China and other nations.
The move comes as some are criticizing the president for not acting fast enough when it came to early testing and enacting social distancing guidelines.
Yes, Trump is halting funding of the WHO for multiple reasons. 1, they were too slow to acknowledge human-to-human transmission of the virus. 2, it took them too long to announce it as an international health emergency. And 3, he criticized them for praising China's transparency. Now, all those are valid reasons, but Trump announced this as a distraction to the public as to why Trump ignored his own advisors who were telling him to prepare for a major outbreak months before. And yeah, the organization isn't perfect, but why would you cut funding to the World Health Organization when we're literally in the middle of a pandemic? Listen to this.
With the World Health Organization,
What's happened there is a disgrace. There's something going on. There's something going on that's very bad. It's been going on for a long period of time, and we don't want to be the suckers anymore.
This is COVID-19, not COVID-1, folks. And so you would think the people charged with the World Health Organization facts and figures would be on top of that.
You guys know I like to make fun of Fox News a lot on this channel, but Kellyanne Conway, one of Trump's top advisors, thought COVID-19 meant there were 18 coronaviruses and not the year it was discovered, 2019. But one part of this makes it even funnier, because she said this while she was trying to shame the WHO. Alright, let's move on to some good news. The company LEGO has announced that they have converted some of their modeling machines to help make protective equipment for medical workers. For international news, India has taken some unique measures. For example, Indian law enforcement caught some tourists not following social distancing guidelines and made them write, "I did not follow the rules of lockdown, so I am so sorry," 500 times.
Do you know what is going on in the world? Yes, sir, I am aware. Corona is going on, man. You are just living in India. You should have to follow the rule and regulation of India. Yes, sir. Then why you are here? Oh, I didn't know. Understand? Today I am just giving a very short punishment. Otherwise, I'll take you police station and you'll get jail. Understand? Thank you, sir. Thank you. You write down. I did not follow the rule of lockdown. I am very sorry.
And one town in Indonesia is taking measures so far that some volunteers are dressing up as ghosts to scare people back into their homes. But it didn't turn out that well.
A village in Indonesia is using an unusual method to try and curb the spread of the coronavirus. Take a look at this. Local volunteers dressing up as ghosts to patrol their neighbourhood streets, trying to spook residents into respecting stay-at-home orders. Officials say the plan originally backfired when people ventured out to take photos of the ghosts for social media.
Yeah, just think about that. The plan to originally scare people back into their homes has made more people come out of their houses just so they could take a picture of the ghost and post it on social media. So, as Trump races to reopen the economy up by his preferred date, May 1st, public health experts are warning that we won't be able to just go back to normal until there's mass testing, contact tracing, and eventually a vaccine. A responsible president would be preparing for that reality. Instead, Trump is once again trying to wave away the crisis as his approval ratings drop, and people are starting to stop believing him. And that is because
we don't want to be the suckers anymore.
Thanks for watching, and I might have a special episode coming out soon, so stay tuned and see you next week on Trump Tuesday. As the coronavirus keeps spreading, many of us are following government orders to stay at home and avoid going outside. As the leading country with the most coronavirus cases and deaths, we are forced to socially distance ourselves away from other people. But recently, dozens of people across the United States have come outside to protest stay-at-home orders and are very eager to reopen the country.
Protests erupting coast to coast with calls to end stay-at-home orders. Thousands lining the streets of Wisconsin, rallying cries from Washington to Colorado to Maryland.
Fired up protesters converging on downtown Huntington Beach today, holding up signs proclaiming social distancing equals communism and COVID-19 is a lie.
We will not submit to communism or socialism. We will reopen America.
Hundreds of people crowded in front of the governor's residence in Indiana.
Who has the right to tell me I can't get a haircut? I can't go here, I can't go there.
While in Texas, dozens chanted, "Fire Fauci."
Fire Fauci! Fire Fauci!
I mean, this is just sad and worrying. These people want Trump to fire one of the top medical experts in the United States that has helped solve viruses such as HIV and helped assist every president since Ronald Reagan. This is just sad. And you would also expect the president to say something about this, right? Maybe saying that this is wrong and every protester is contributing to spread the virus instead of containing it, right? Oh no, because all these people are Trump supporters, not surprised. Trump actually is defending them, saying that all they have is, quote, a cabin fever, and also calling them, quote, very responsible people.
These are great people. They've got cabin fever. They want to get back.
Sir, are you concerned, though, that people coming out in protest are going to spread COVID to other people? They're congregating in ways that health experts have said they should not.
No, these are people expressing their views. I see where they are, and I see the way they're working. They seem to be very responsible people to me.
Yes, people are suffering from cabin fever, and I can't think of any disease right now that can be worse than that. Moving on, The scientist in charge of the government's efforts to make a coronavirus vaccine suddenly got fired. He says that the reason was because he disagreed with President Trump with pushing hydroxychloroquine as a miracle drug. But some people that he worked with said that the reason was because he wasn't good at his job and he was working too slowly. And when Trump was asked why the guy in charge of finding a vaccine was fired, this was how he responded.
I never heard of him. You just mentioned the name. I never heard of him. When did this happen?
This happened today.
Well, I never heard of him. If the guy says he was pushed out of a job, maybe he was, maybe he wasn't. You'd have to hear the other side. I don't know who he is.
Yeah, you guys have heard of this before. The classic, I've never heard of him excuse. And I highly doubt that the guy that was put in charge to find a vaccine to a virus that shut down the whole world, Trump has never heard of. Anyways, as Trump fires major medical professionals and continues to defend anti-lockdown protesters, Trump faces another backlash because of one comment he made during Thursday's press briefing.
And then I said, supposing you brought the light inside the body, which you can do, either through the skin or in some other way. Right, and then I see the disinfectant, where it knocks it out in a minute, 1 minute. And is there a way we can do something like that by injection inside or almost a cleaning? Because you see it gets on the lungs and it does a tremendous number on the lungs. So
yes, Trump thinks that injecting disinfectants and UV rays into your body may cure the virus. And this is insane. Because after he made that comment, poison control hotlines from around the country were flooded with calls, forcing companies such as Lysol to put out a statement to not put disinfectants into the human body. He later tried to downplay the remark by claiming he was being, quote, sarcastic.
The president used a familiar strategy to get out of his latest crisis. Donald Trump shrugged off his comments.
No, I was asking a question sarcastically to reporters like you, just to see what would happen.
It absolutely did not seem like a joke when on live TV, Trump asked a top official to look at whether UV rays or disinfectant can be inserted into bodies as COVID-19 treatments.
And is there a way we can do something like that by injection inside?
A doctor on Trump's task force missed the apparent joke, cringing as he went on.
Yeah, that's crazy. And just to put this out, the statement was not towards the reporter. The whole time he was saying that, he was looking directly at Deborah Birx, a top medical expert and coordinator on Trump's task force. Trump is like that one guy who tells everyone a false did you know fact, and when someone asked him about it the next day, he would say he was being sarcastic to not embarrass himself. Anyways, let's end this video off with some good news. One anchor for ABC News made one man's story a little more interesting.
Down with a virus after spending time on a ventilator and 5 full weeks in the hospital, the governor today announcing that Jack has died.
It was a long month, but slowly Jack rebounded. And last Thursday, he was clapped out by the doctors and nurses who saved his life as he walked out of the hospital.
I feel horrible. Jack is very much alive. Jack, we love you. Again, Jack is alive and back home.
I mean, you've got to give it to the guy for the recovery. You know, if this was Fox News and played that clip, they would have been like, wow, how unbelievable. It looks like Jack has been resurrected from the dead after having died from COVID-1. Anyways, that's gonna have to do it for this week's episode. But remember, Trump ignored several months of warnings from his personal advisors, but blamed the WHO for acting too slowly, while he is still lying about the virus, promoting an unproven cure, and saying that injecting disinfectants may be a cure, while in all of this influencing hundreds or even thousands of Americans to do what he is saying. When the time comes, the Trump presidency should just...
where it knocks it out in a minute, 1 minute.
I hope you enjoyed my last video, but as usual, I'll see you next week on Trump Tuesday. We all know that Trump is obsessed with Twitter, but one thing we all don't know is that he pays attention to every tweet he gets.
Engineer in California who tweeted the president was paid $69 million for ventilators that never came. On March 27th, President Trump posted on Twitter to urge Ford and General Motors to start making ventilators now. A man named Yaron Oren Pines tweeted back, "We can supply ICU ventilators. Have someone call me urgent." And that's all it took. The guy had just 75 followers on Twitter and no apparent experience in manufacturing. But 3 days later, New York State entered into a $69 million contract with the man. A New York State official said that they entered the contract at the direct recommendation of the White House Coronavirus Task Force. Now New York has terminated the deal and is trying to get its money back.
Okay, 1. Why the heck did this even happen? And 2, how the heck did this happen? Seriously? Some random guy at Twitter says he can make ventilators with no followers and experience, and you give him a $69 million contract? And also, how does the government have this much money to spend on some random guy and not have enough to pay their essential workers? So many questions. So many questions. Moving on. Since this pandemic started, we started to realize how much we really take for granted, and have started to learn to appreciate all of those essential workers and doctors putting their lives on the line to save others. As many businesses start to shut down and unemployment rates skyrocket, one of the most important industries that we need to survive is the food industry. But it turns out the coronavirus is coming for that too.
The food supply chain is breaking. That's the warning in a full-page ad from Tyson Foods, released in the New York Times. It comes after one of the country's largest meat processors closed a massive pork processing plant in Iowa.
This morning, with beef increasingly scarce, President Trump promising to take action, signing an executive order under the Defense Production Act to ensure processing plants stay open and run at the maximum extent possible.
Okay, I'll say it right here. Trump definitely knows what his priorities are in life, because he had months of warnings about a possible pandemic coming to America, and he did practically nothing. But you tell that man once there's going to be a beef shortage, he's springing right into action. And that's a big deal. Yeah, Trump probably never heard of the word action in his life, so that's first. Okay, so enough making fun of Trump for now, and let's focus on the people that really matter. The same people Trump indirectly told, nope, you're gonna go right back to work.
Processing plants can be a breeding ground for the virus because many workers spend their days side by side.
You're not talking about 200 people, you're talking about several thousand people.
We are very close. We can't use a social distance at that place.
Okay, seriously? You know it's really sad that these workers are being forced to keep the food chain going, but nobody's being forced to protect them while they do it. Trump suggested last week that injecting disinfectants may cure the virus, and when asked about this in a press briefing, this is how he responded.
Governor Larry Hogan specifically said they've seen a spike in people using disinfectant after your comments last week. I know you said they were sarcastic.
I can't imagine why. I can't imagine why. Yeah.
Take any responsibility?
No, I don't. No, I can't imagine. I can't imagine that.
Yeah, I can't imagine why somebody would follow your advice. Then Trump shifted blame to his longtime nemesis, fill in the blank.
It could have been stopped, and it could have been stopped short, but somebody a long time ago, it seems, decided not to do it that way, and the whole world is suffering because of it.
Yes, someone should have tried to stop it a long time ago. I wonder who that could be. Anyways, on Saturday, Mike Pence visited a Mayo Clinic where he was the only one not wearing a required mask. When asked about this, here's his response.
You just walk us through why you made the decision not to wear the mask, even though the clinic said that they tweeted that they had asked you to do so.
When the CDC issued guidelines about wearing a mask, it was their recognition that people that may have the coronavirus could prevent the possibility of conveying the virus to someone else by wearing a mask. And since I don't have the coronavirus, I thought it'd be a good opportunity for me to be here, to be able to speak to these researchers, these incredible healthcare personnel, and look them in the eye and say thank you.
Of course Pence thought he was immune to COVID-19. The coronavirus only infects warm-blooded mammals, not albino reptiles. Also, you can look at people through a mask. A mask is supposed to cover your mouth and nose, not your eyes. Alright, let's end this video off with some good news. A study at Oxford University may have a solution for the coronavirus vaccine.
The faster timetable, they say, is because their vaccine has been in development for decades in an effort to stop other coronaviruses. Now it has been adjusted for immunity against COVID-19 and tested on 6 monkeys at the Rocky Mountain Laboratories in Montana. After exposure to the virus, they report the monkeys did not get sick.
Yeah, 6 monkeys have been tested on this with the vaccine, and then exposed to the virus, and none of them got sick. And this is all good and all, but maybe, just maybe, should they try to test like UV rays into the body, or maybe disinfectant injection? I don't know. It could work. We can get some doctors to test that. I've said this last episode and the episode before, but I'll say it again. Trump ignored several months of warnings from his personal advisors, but when he heard the news about meat plants shutting down, Trump goes right into action to stop that, while putting thousands of workers at risk promoting disinfectant injections and anti-lockdown protesters. Sometimes I wonder how Trump even got elected as the most powerful man in the world. I'll just say to myself,
I can't imagine why. I can't imagine why, yeah.
Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next week on Trump Tuesday.